We're about to try and decode the mind of Leonardo da Vinci. I mean, this was a man so far ahead of his time, it's hard to even wrap your head around it. And the key to understanding him? Well, it's locked away inside thousands of pages of secret notebooks.
Okay, so I want you to picture this. It is the dead of night. The only light is from a single flickering candle. A man has just passed away, and Leonardo da Vinci is there, waiting. The second that life leaves the body, he starts dissecting it, frantically sketching and writing everything down. 30 pages in a single night, all in that famous backwards mirror script of his.
And what's in these notebooks? It is just staggering. We're talking about blueprints for helicopters and robots 400 years before they actually existed, the mathematical formula for beauty, incredibly detailed drawings of every single organ in the human body. He was even trying to pinpoint the exact location of the soul. This wasn't just a journal, it was the mind of a visionary spilled onto paper.
In the end, he left behind over 13,000 pages. And get this, every single one is written from right to left, completely in reverse. A lot of these pages are literally stained with his dried, bloody fingerprints from those dissections. It's an intense, stark reminder of just how hands-on he was. You'd think this treasure trove would have been protected, right? Nope. For 300 years after he died, this knowledge was basically lost. The notebooks were scattered all across Europe, their original order totally destroyed. It was like Da Vinci's genius had been shattered into 1,000 pieces. So when scholars finally started putting this massive puzzle back together in the 1800s, one big theory started to take shape. The mirror writing, all the secrecy, they figured it had to be an elaborate code, a way to hide his work from the one power that could have him killed for it: the church.
And honestly, the evidence looked pretty solid. I mean, he had sketches of embryos developing in the womb, which completely contradicted what the Bible taught. A lot of his designs for war machines were deliberately flawed. Like, he drew up plans for a tank, but the gears were designed to turn in opposite directions, so it couldn't move. It was almost like he was hiding the real secrets from a dangerous power.
And you have to understand, the threat was very, very real. Decades after Leonardo died, a man named Giordano Bruno was burned at the stake just for suggesting the Earth revolved around the sun. Then, a few years later, Galileo gets thrown in prison for the same exact idea. So yeah, Leonardo knew the stakes. He knew if his discoveries got out, the church could come for him too. So it all adds up, right? He was a genius, hiding from a paranoid and powerful church. Case closed. Well, that's only half the story. And the full truth, it's way more personal, and frankly, way more fascinating. It wasn't until 1938 that a book by an art historian named Ludwig Heidenreich really started to reveal the true face of Leonardo da Vinci. And it turns out, his secrets had a lot less to do with the church and everything to do with a childhood that was defined by shame and rejection. You see, Leonardo was born an illegitimate child. In the eyes of society back then, that pretty much made him a devil's child. On top of that, he was left-handed, which many considered another mark of the devil. He was an outcast from day one, denied a formal education, so he was forced to learn everything by teaching himself. And his language? It was observation.
And because he was forced to look so closely, he saw things nobody else did. As a boy, he just stares at a tree and discovers a fundamental law of physics. He realizes the size of the tree trunk is equal to the combined size of all of its branches. Today, we call that the principle of network flow. It's the same rule that governs how our arteries work or how the internet sends data. He saw this centuries before anyone else, just by looking at a tree.
He looked at mountains in the distance and saw optical physics in action. He was the first to write down that faraway objects have less contrast, they look more blue, and their edges get blurry. This single observation would become a fundamental rule for all landscape painting, what we now call atmospheric perspective. And that scientific brain of his is what revolutionized his art. If you compare art from his time, it's all about these strong, clear outlines. But Leonardo looked at the world and knew that's not how light and air work. In the real world, there are no harsh edges. So his characters aren't defined by lines. They feel like they are literally sculpted out of light and shadow. He actually invented a whole new technique to do this. It's called Sfumato. That's Italian for smoked. And it's a way of blending colors so smoothly that the hard edges just seem to vanish, to dissolve into the air. It created a level of realism that no one had ever seen before. It was pure science creating breathtaking art. But this whole journey from outcast to genius, it was really ignited by a single moment of incredible personal pain. One night, back in 1476, that would change his life forever. A night that turned his curiosity into a burning, all-consuming obsession.
An anonymous note was left for the authorities in Florence, accusing Leonardo of sodomy. Now, this wasn't just a scandal. The punishment could be torture, prison, or even being burned alive. In the end, he was acquitted, but the damage was done. His reputation was completely destroyed.
The pain of that public shaming was so deep that it just shattered his identity. He actually wrote about it later in his notebooks. He said, "I isolate myself so that the failure of the world cannot reach me." He basically decided to retreat from a world that had so cruelly rejected him.
And for the next 4 years, that's exactly what he did. He locked himself away from society. His notebooks became his only companions. He just poured his entire existence onto those pages, creating a new world for himself, a world that was centuries ahead of its time.
And this is when his questions started to change. He wasn't just observing the world around him anymore. He was trying to decode his own being. Who am I? He wrote. Where does the soul live? Where do feelings like pain, shame, and fear actually reside in the body? This wasn't a hobby anymore. It was his reason for living.
And to find these answers, he started illegally smuggling human corpses to dissect. This drawing here of the human skull, it's a cross-section. It looks almost exactly like an MRI slice, and he created it 500 years before the MRI was even invented. He was meticulously scooping out the brain, trying to map its ventricles, because he was convinced that that was the home of the human soul.
But this obsessive quest created this really profound paradox. On the one hand, he was this gentle pacifist, a vegetarian who loved animals so much he would buy caged birds just to set them free. But on the other hand, this is the same man who designed tanks, machine guns, and weapons of mass destruction. It's like he was both a hero and a villain at the same time.
So, we've seen how Leonardo's painful childhood shaped his genius, and how this one traumatic event pushed him into a world of obsessive discovery. But that still leaves us with these final, really haunting questions. His notebooks held knowledge that could have propelled humanity forward by 200 years. So why did he hide them from the world? And maybe the biggest mystery of all, why, at the end of his life, did this incredible genius call his own existence a failure?